we're going to be looking at this lab, and it's going to be Lab 5, which is Functions in C. We're just going over a basic C program. This one is very similar to Java, and we're doing this in our Keel IDE. So we'll have this loaded up here. To configure everything, there's a link to playlist in the description below the like button, where we go over the entire setup and download of all the software. So it's super simple, super easy, and we can just get into this. First, we have our comments right here. We have our includes for our C. These are kind of like our libraries. We have our global declaration section, where inside of here we have our void enable interrupts, where we have enable interrupt method, and we have an unsigned long calculate area, where we pass in an unsigned long and an unsigned long with length and width. We have a main function right here, and this main function is given to us. So inside of here we have our unsigned long, we have length, width, and area. So we're making three variables here. We have the initialization of our TExaS grader for our Lab 5, so we have TExaS init, passing in our UART pin, PAO, and then our PA1. So we're passing in the two pins, and then we're going to call our UART init, so we're initializing the UART for printing. That way we can actually use the UART to print, and we'll look at that in a second. We have this print line here, calculates the areas of regular rooms. We have some more print statements in this while loop, and we have this enable interrupts, so the grader needs interrupts to see, and then it's void right here. It's not really declared or made anywhere later, but it is void, and it takes void, so I'm assuming that that's going to be okay. Again, this is all given to us. We have our while loop, and inside of here we have our print statement, so we have printf, given our length. Now we're taking user input, so we're going to use scanf. Inside of here we have LD and length, so we're scanning, we're taking this length that the user inputs from the console, and this LD is just for formatting, I believe. And then we're passing them into our method to calculate the area. So note how we call our calculate area right here, and unlike our enable interrupts, we're actually going to be coding this right here. So we have our calculate area, where we pass in our length and our width, we store the answer in area, and then we're going to print it out in this print statement right here. Now before we go over this code, let's keep going over the instructions really quick. So the purpose is to learn how to write software involving functions, parameters, and if-then conditions. Let's look at our system requirements. We have our procedure. This is the code that was given to us, and then we have our code that we're going to run here. So this is our part B that we're currently working on. So inside of here we want to compute the area of a rectangle. In the doc that we were looking at here, it tells us what we need to do, but it'll also tell us inside of this lab. So if the length is less than 3, width less than 3, greater than 20, or width is greater than 20, length or width, then we're just going to return 0. Now the original code looks something like this. I've modified it a little bit just to make it a little bit easier to read, and just it's simpler to execute. So basically we're saying we have this if statement, we check our conditions, and we're going to return length times width. If it falls out of these conditions, we're just going to return a 0. And so that's how I coded that. To get this to work, we can go to project, clean targets for good measure, build our project. From inside of here, we want to go into our debug. This is the options right here. We want to use the simulator. We'll click OK. We can click debug. Our evaluation mode will come up. Press OK. And inside of here, we can see we have our UART1, we have our command, and we have our grader right here. If our UART doesn't pop up, there's a window or something we can click, I forget exactly which one it is, and it'll bring this up. If our grading doesn't pop up, we can go into our peripherals, click TExaS port F, and this will show up. If we click grade, it's going to run through all of our different scenarios and give us a score. If we coded it out right, it'll give us a score of 100. Now, we are going to want to look on debugging on the real board. So to run the real board, we can read all these instructions here, or we can just go over it really quickly. Now, I had some issues with this, so what we're going to want to do first is open our device manager. Now, make sure the board is plugged in, it's in the debug mode and it's on. You're going to see our Stellaris right here in our in-circuit debug interface. We have a communications port right here. We're using the USB serial device, so we're going to want to be on COM13. Now, opening up the files, I'm in the Keel, wherever we stored our TExaS software, we're going to want to go into the TExaS display. It's an application, we can click it and we can open it like this. Now, from inside of here, we're going to want to use our COM13 port. We're going to click COM, we can click open port. It's going to be the same thing as if we click open here. It's going to say it's open COM 1, but at least for my circumstance, we want COM 13. To check which one you want to do, click our edX right here. We're going to want this to be lab number 5, and then we want our number from edX to be 2260. These are both standard. We'll click grade from here. It says grading lab 5. Press reset on the launchpad. If I press reset, nothing is going to happen for me. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to close and open the next. We can see that instead of opening COM 1, we open COM 13. Pressing OK here, it's going to run through all of the different scenarios, and it's going to give us a grade of 100. So I have gotten a grade of 100 here, and that is the score for this lab. We can also input our own length if we want to. So we could input 6. Another width, we can do 5, we get 30. Now if we input 2 that are too small, it's going to give us 0. And that's going to be it for this lab. That's how we would do it. Lastly, we have some questions that we're going to want to look at. For some reason, my computer decided not to work. Maybe it's because I have a lot running on it, but it should be fine. I have problems with my drivers, so I'm not able to record it on it, and we're just going to do it on the phone. So we're going to answer these questions. The first one is, how is the function calc_area being called? We have call by value or call by reference. So what is the answer to this? Well, to solve this, we're going to have to look back at our code. And this is our main.c file. Sorry if it's a little bit orange. That's just because I have my blue light filter, because all I do is make videos and study. So inside of our code, again, we're going to want to be in our main.c file. We're going to look for the first call of this, and we can see it's on line 19. We have our function prototypes here, where we have our unsigned long. It's our calc area. Well, is the function calc area being called by value or by reference? Well, looking at someone else's notes, someone else's video really quick, because a lot of this class is really self-study. There's two ways we can do this. We can do a call by value or a call by reference. So a call by value is when we copy the argument pasted. Changes in the function don't affect the original function. And we want to use this function when we do not need to modify the argument, so we can avoid accidental changes. Call by reference is when we pass the original argument. It does change the original, so changes in this function affect the original, and it's only used with trusted functions. Well, we can see that we're going to want to call this in our while loop multiple times, and that means we can't change our original function. Another thing is that we call it, or we make it right here. So we can see that we have our unsigned long calc area right there, and then later is where we declare it. So this is my thought. My thought is that, because I'm still relatively new to this C, is that we make this right here, and then later we define it. And when we call it inside of our main function right here, we're calling this reference, this pointer. And so that means it's going to be at least what I think, a call by value. Now we're asked, what are the actual and formal arguments in the function calc area? Well, the answer for this, I would think, is if we look at our unsigned long calc area right here, the two arguments are unsigned long L and unsigned long W. So my thought is that the two arguments are going to be the following arguments, unsigned long L and unsigned long W. So that's going to be it for this lab. Again, my computer did not want to do a driver update, which caused it to kind of break. And that's going to be it for this lab. We have our questions here, we have our keel, and we've also debugged it on our real board, which is sitting right here. So that's all. More videos and 187 stuff will be in the description below the like button, notes and videos.